All right, y'all. So I think it's very interesting to see Christians debate people of other religions, people of other, belief systems, specifically for the reason or for the purpose of understanding how the other side thinks and how the other side views Christianity. And I found this video on YouTube. Well, actually, I saw a clip of this video on YouTube and I was super curious and I ended up finding the full video on YouTube. And this is specifically a debate between Greg Koukl, who I don't know all that much about Greg Koukl, to be honest with you. I know that he's a Christian apologist. I know that he's very well known, but I personally haven't seen that many of his teachings. He's debating against Deepak Chopra. Now, Deepak Chopra, he is somebody who I'm familiar with. I know he's probably one of the biggest voices and one of the biggest figures when it comes to this new age type of, abundance mindset or, manifestation mindset and stuff like that. And also he really got big because Oprah, for whatever reason, Oprah's, she's out there. I don't know what she's doing in terms of Christianity and in terms of her faith. But it seems like she's got a long way to go in order to find the truth. But Oprah, she would invite Deepak Chopra on her show, and they would do like these teachings on new age stuff and manifestations and stuff like that. So I think this should be a very interesting conversation. And this was on a show called Faith Under Fire, hosted by Lee Strobel, I believe. I don't know how old this show is. It said this was posted to YouTube 5 years ago, but I don't know how old the actual show is. So anyway, let's dive in. Let's check out this video. Before we do this, though, if you could just do me a favor and hit that like button. And also make sure you have your post notifications turned on. That would really help out a lot, just so you know the next time that I post. All right. So let's get into it. And I'm just going to tell you this just, up front. This is an older video, so the audio is not as crisp, it's not as clean, but I think your ears will start to adjust to it the more that we listen to it, all right? So let's dive in.
Religion's relevant in the 21st century, or do we need a new understanding of faith? In a world teeming with danger, is religion part of the answer or part of the problem? Joining me to discuss the future of faith is Dr. Deepak Chopra, best-selling author and founder of the Chopra Center for Healing. In his new book, Peace is the Way, he doesn't seem to hold out much hope for traditional dogma and doctrine. Also, here is Christian speaker Greg Koukl, founder of Stand to Reason and co-author of the book Relativism, Feet Firmly Planted in Midair. Dr. Chopra, let me start with you. You say in your book that the world faces two choices. One, to keep defending traditional religion to the last ditch, no matter how much it contradicts reason. Or two, to urge religion to evolve so that it gains the kind of relevance that science cannot defeat. How and why do you believe religion must change in the future?
I think the founders of religion, like Christ and Muhammad and Buddha, all had experiences of a domain of awareness which is universal. And they spoke the truth. But then what we did is we took that and we created dogma and ideology out of it, and we went to war. Partly, religion is not right now so credible because it has no consistency and has nothing to do with what we call an understanding of biology or cosmology or evolution. And yet, as human beings, we all have this hunger for knowing if there is God, if God exists, if we have a soul, understanding the meaning of our life and the meaning of death. We have a great spiritual hunger, but our traditional religions do not answer the most important questions that we have satisfactorily.
Do you see that, do you believe that traditional religions inevitably will lead to conflict and divisiveness and so forth then?
At the moment, that seems to be the case. There's all the divisiveness and all the quarrels and all the, really, some of the idiotic stuff that's happening in the world is in the name of God and religion.
And so what do we need to change into?
I think we need to really practice the essential nature of the universal message, which is love and compassion and understanding. We need to see the inseparability of life in our planet, to see that our ecosystem and we are intimately, inseparably connected, and that when we experience that domain of our awareness where we are inseparable, then morality, so-called morality, becomes a byproduct, not a means to divinity, but a byproduct of our essential connection with a deeper intelligence. You know, there is no question, there is mystery. There is a luminous mystery in which we are bathed and surrounded by, and that when we experience this mystery, whatever we call it, God, the greater intelligence at the heart of creation, then we feel inspired, we understand the power of intention, we have insight, we have intuition, we have creativity, we have meaning, we have purpose, we understand the meaning of free will, and we are tolerant and forgiving.
Okay, Mr. Koukl, how do you see the future of faith, and where do you agree or disagree with Dr. Chopra?
I agree with Dr. Chopra that there are right and wrong answers to these issues, and these answers matter. In one sense, I think that the future of faith is always the way it's ever been. That is, if you find out what the truth of the matter is and then put your active trust in it, your faith in it, then that's great. The problem is getting down to what actually reality is. Whatever was true about God 100 years ago is going to be true about God today. If people don't get reality right, reality has a way of bruising people who don't take it seriously. So I have to look closely on these issues. This is why, as a Christian, for me, I don't, and biblically, I'm not interested in a leap of faith against reason. I'm looking at trying to figure out what the truth of the matter is, and then investing my intelligent faith in that so I can live right. And this is the same kind of Christianity, religious view, really, that Jesus himself offered. Many of the things that Dr. Chopra said, I'm in favor of. Love and compassion and peace and kindness and all of those things. But no, those are doctrinal points of view. These are points of view that are part of a religious system, his system, and in many ways, my system, holds those same things. But if you want to get away from divisiveness by getting away...
Why does Deepak look so annoyed? He looks so annoyed. You know what I was thinking when Deepak was talking? It's like you're saying we need to get back to the universal law of love. Well, I mean, just like, Greg was talking about, that those are views that are held in Christianity as well. But I think something that's so interesting to me when it comes to these new age people, specifically the people at the top, like Deepak Chopra, they've become so good at monetizing this, new age belief system, this new age teaching, because deep down inside, we all have a spiritual desire. We all have a spiritual void that needs to be fulfilled. And either you're going to fulfill that the correct way, which is through Jesus Christ, or you're going to find somebody like a Deepak Chopra who might sound good. Like if you don't know Jesus, if you don't know the Bible, and if you're listening to Deepak Chopra, it might sound good because he's literally using similar principles that are found in the Bible in order to lull you in order to sell you books and sell you teachings and sell you courses. And he's become so successful and so good at monetizing it. Why would you turn back? Like if you're Deepak Chopra, why would you change your stance when this same business model has made you millions and millions of dollars? And that's the part that people don't really understand. It's like you're listening to these teachers, but what are they actually motivated by? So that's just what I'm thinking.
From doctrine, you can't talk about love and peace and joy and closeness and all of those things, which turn out to be doctrinal elements of a particular view. In other words, you can't talk about reality as a particular thing, and then in the next breath, and it's important to find that, and then in the next breath talk about getting away from all kinds of distinctions and dichotomies and religious differences. The fact is, there are religious differences, and it's our job to figure out which point of view religiously is true. If people take reality and truth seriously, there's great hope for faith. If they don't take it seriously and they get lost in fantasy, leaps of faith, and religious wishful thinking, then I have no hope for them at all.
Okay, Dr. Chopra, what's your reaction to what Mr. Koukl says?
The universe is huge, almost beyond our imagination. So any concept that we have of God is bound to be limited because concepts by and large are limited. I don't think we can conceptualize God.
Well, Dr. Chopra in his book talks a lot about all kinds of concepts of God. So if you can't conceptualize God, you can't write books about what God is like and how to know him and how to be more God-like.
Dang.
Well, you can offer a map that helps you get there to some extent, but ultimately it's a personal journey you must make.
I agree. It is a personal journey, but it entails concepts of God, and if we can't have concepts of God, then we can't even begin the journey. The universe is big. It's very vast. Because the universe is big, it doesn't mean that our concepts of God are too small for him.
But right now in your language, you're already giving God a male identity. You keep saying he.
Well, I'm using
Why
that
does
as
God have to be hijacked by men?
Okay, I think you understand. Most of us do that. We are using a religious or a grammatical convention to use he. If I said it would depersonalize him. In English, there's no way to talk about it except for through this. If you feel better, I'll say he, she. We'll just say for the record, I don't believe God is a man, and I'm trying to somehow make him into a man at all. That's not my point, really.
Okay, let's hold things right here, and let's pick up this conversation about the future of faith after this. We're back talking about
Did he say he doesn't believe that God is a man? Did I hear that incorrectly? Did I hear that incorrectly?
Future of Faith with Dr. Deepak Chopra and Greg Koukl. Dr. Chopra, in your book you say, as evolution proceeds, God changes. And then later you say, as you evolve, so will the divine. What do you mean by that?
I mean that our understanding of the divine evolves, not that the divine is absolute. So, the absolute cannot evolve, but the expressions of the absolute in the relative and our understanding of the relative certainly evolves as our understanding of nature evolves and our understanding of intelligence evolves as we become more aware of our awareness and begin to understand the nature of consciousness, then our understanding of God in the relative has to evolve.
You also say God isn't a person. What is God then?
God is the infinite intelligence, the infinite consciousness, the infinite divine ground of being that expresses itself as everything in creation, space-time, energy, matter, and also when we experience that, we feel infinite love, infinite compassion, knowingness, intuition, creativity, and all the things that we consider states of higher consciousness.
Frankly, I don't know that how can we can experience compassion from a God who isn't a person. I think if God is created, if there is a creation that God is responsible for, creation is an act of personality. Jesus understood God as a person. He talked to the Father. He had conversations with the Father. He said, not my will, but thine be done. God was a communicator. He was able to give revelation so we could understand some things about him. He's not a cosmic floating battery cell. He's someone we can love and engage in personal relationship with. And this is where I think there's a very, very big difference between what Dr. Chopra believes and what I believe and what Jesus himself believes in classical Christianity has taught. It is possible to be in relationship with God because there are some senses in which he is like us. He has made us in his image, and he is a personal being that allows for interaction and communication, some positive understanding about what he's like. He's right. I think God himself doesn't evolve. Dr. Chopra said that. But our ideas about him evolve. But it doesn't necessarily mean just because our ideas evolve that the ideas that we have about God now are wrong and they need to evolve into something different. It might be that some of the ideas that we have today about God are accurate. Maybe some of the things that Jesus said about God were true and that they don't have to evolve from there. And I think those are the questions that we have to ask. To say that our ideas always evolve kind of encourages a constant skepticism, I think an unhealthy skepticism, that we can never know the truth. There is a healthy skepticism that we should always question to see if we're right. But if we have the idea that we're always evolving and there's some better way down the line, then we can't trust what we believe now. That sets up people to judge what I believe as false and wrong and narrow-minded and arrogant just because I've come to the conviction that I think it's actually true.
Dr. Chopra, would it be accurate to say that your conception of God contradicts that of Jesus then?
Well, no, I respect his beliefs, but they're not necessarily all my beliefs. After all, there are conceptions of God that are quite different in Buddhism, in Jainism, in Zoroastrianism. Not everybody in the world is a Christian, and some people may not be even familiar with or have heard of Jesus Christ. So, there's a difference there in just the way we are brought up culturally, historically. We are part of a spiritual inheritance. And who's to say that his is superior or mine is?
Dr. Chopra, you're a medical doctor. Not everybody in the world understands medicine. You write books about how people can be healthy. Just because there are some people in the world that don't understand medicine and don't get the right answers to medical questions doesn't mean that you don't have the right answers. And by the same token, just because there are many other religions in the world, it doesn't mean that there's some religion that doesn't have the right take on it. The fact is, you think your view is correct, which is why you've written a number of books explaining to other people the right way to think about it and challenging views like mine as the wrong way to think about it. Now, I'm not the least bit offended that you don't think that I'm correct in my view. What troubles me is the sense that people like me are the ones who cause the problems and cause the wars because we think we're right, when in fact you think you're just as right as I am in my view. I think what's better is not calling people intolerant for their beliefs, rather looking at which beliefs are actually true. That's the way our time, I think, would be better spent.
Go ahead, Dr. Chopra.
If you look at my writings, I've expressed views from every religion. I carry the Sermon on the Mount with me all the time as something that I want to listen to and emulate. And, I have my own view of Christianity, which is more influenced by the so-called apocryphal Gospels, the Gospel of Thomas, and some of the views that we have about Christ in India. There's a church in India that I have been to regularly in Kerala, where for 300 years after Christ's death, they thought they were the only Christians in the world, and they had never heard of Paul or the New Testament. So, there are different views in different parts of the world. And even as I write about medicine as a doctor, I never say that this is the only right view, because there's Chinese medicine and there's Ayurvedic medicine, and there are many things in different parts of the world that actually work very much better in medicine than traditional Western medicine.
You have a view of Christianity. You adopt some things from Christianity and from other religions, and you've kind of created your religious view such as it is. My only point is you think that religious view is the correct one, which is why you write books to critique other people who hold alternate views. You might agree with some things of Christianity, that is your take on what Jesus said in some cases in the Sermon on the Mount, but the Christian worldview is characterized in the Scriptures, the worldview that Jesus held as a whole. This isn't something, at least the way I would understand it, this isn't something that you hold as true. There's no problem with that. We have these kind of discussions. I don't want you to miss the main point here, Dr. Chopra, that I'm making, and it's just that there are different views. Just because there are different views doesn't mean that everybody's right, and doesn't mean that somebody's wrong or arrogant for thinking that they've got the correct view and they're trying to tell other people about it. You're doing the very same thing here.
I'm not imposing my view, sir. I'm just expressing my view, and those who want to listen, they do. Those who want to read, they do.
My view entirely.
But I'm not going out there telling everybody that my view is the only correct view.
Well, you're offering, I guess all one has to do...
that I'm familiar with. That's all I can offer.
Yes, but...
I'm a product of my culture, of my history, of my background. There's a context, and that context goes back thousands of years.
Yes, I think that you think that. The fact is you're doing more than that in the books because you're finding fault with other religious views who don't have the same view as you do. I have a particular view. I think there is sin. For example, I think there is judgment. I think that God will hold men responsible for their views. I think for their sins. I think that my religious view is correct. I think that other people have something to lose by not believing in this. This you've characterized in your writing as dogmatic, narrow-minded, and the kind of thing that causes wars.
I have. I respect that you have those views, but they're not my views. I'll be honest.
Okay, good.
Okay, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, we'll pick up our conversation talking about the future of faith. What's your definition of faith, Greg?
My definition of faith is a reasonable trust in something you have good reason to believe is true. I got in a limo this morning and drove over to this thing. I entrusted myself to that limo driver because I figured he was hired by you guys and he knew the route. So I put my trust in him when I climbed into the car and depended upon him to take me to this location to do this filming. That is a reasonable act of trust based on information. Now, I could have gone out and walked in the street and jumped into any car that was going by and hoped they would take me to the right destination. That would be a leap of faith. That's the distinction I'm talking about here. What I'm promoting is an active trust. If it's possible for us to know anything that we can put our trust into, the thing we should be most concerned about knowing accurately are the kinds of things that Dr. Chopra and I are talking about. And therefore, if you've got good reasons for it, you shouldn't be faulted for having confidence in your view. I have confidence in my view. I could be mistaken.
Okay,
I'm willing to listen to other people's views.
Let's bring that to Dr. Chopra. I mean, he's saying I have confidence in what I believe because of evidence that gives me security, knowing that Jesus said certain things and he did certain things. Based on that, I put my trust in him. That is the faith I put in him.
And at the same time, I have a willingness to embrace the unknown. I'm not tied to my beliefs as dogma, as ideology, and say that this is the only way to look at the world.
But you would concede though that your beliefs don't create reality. In other words, reality doesn't changing. It's your conception of what it is.
Well, according to fundamental physics, reality at the most fundamental level is a field of possibilities that is compelled to make choices based on how we experiment with it. There are a lot of scientists today who are talking about an underlying field of intelligence or consciousness that expresses itself as this non-local consciousness, which is the source of all the organizing power in the universe.
This man wrote a book called How to Know God. Hold on. He wrote a book called How to Know God? How to Know... Oh, hold on. How to Know God. Deepak Chopra. How to Know God. Where the minus button at? How to Know God describes the quest each of us is on, whether we realize it or not. For as Chopra puts it, God is our highest instinct to know ourselves. This book makes a dramatic and enduring contribution to that knowledge. Okay. I don't know. It's interesting with these type of people. It's like they want to sit here and they want to act like, oh, Christians all you Christians are imposing your views on us. And you want us to take your views as being the truth. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you have Deepak Chopra literally has, I don't know how many books, maybe 10, 15, 20 plus books about this topic that they're talking about, consciousness and God and the universe and higher powers and higher beings and stuff like that. Where are you drawing that information from? Where are you drawing that inspiration from? See, with Christians, I could tell you exactly where I'm drawing my information and my inspiration from. It's coming directly from the Bible. It's coming directly from the Word of God, which means it's coming directly from God. But where are you drawing your information from? What is inspiring you? I don't know.
And many scientists, when they explore these domains, they have what could be called spiritual experiences.
Throughout the centuries, people have basically asked three questions about life. I want to kind of turn to that now and get your different takes on this. People ask the question, who am I? Where did I come from? And why am I here? Doctor, what do you think the answers to those questions are?
Who am I? I still am trying to find out. Why am I here? To participate with God in creativity, evolution, love, compassion, understanding. Where did I come from? From a place that has no beginning in time. Where do I go to a place that has no ending in time?
Does that not sound like this dude is drawing inspiration? I mean, he already said he's drawing inspiration from the Bible. So it's like you want to take bits and pieces from the Bible that you believe to be correct, but you don't want to actually believe and have faith that the entire Bible is the actual Word of God. You have more faith in yourself to say, hey, I'm gonna take just these pieces that I like from the Bible. I'm just gonna extract those pieces. And then I'm gonna take these pieces that I like from Islam, and I'm just going to extract those pieces. And from, Buddhists, I'm just going to extract those pieces. I'm just going to make my own, formulation about what I think God is. But bro, that doesn't make any sense. And I think that's what that's one of the issues that I have with the world right now is a lot of people, they understand and they respect and they believe in the core elements, the core teachings that are presented throughout the scriptures, but they don't want to take all of it as being true. They just want the parts that they want to fit into their lifestyle, but they don't want to actually invite Jesus into their life completely and be changed and be renewed and be made new. They just want to take the small bits and pieces that they want. Hey, it is what it is. Let's continue.
The essential reality is transcendent. It's beyond the domain of space-time and causality. And when I experience that essential reality, I feel I am a being of love, and that I lose my fear of death, and that I see meaning and purpose in existence.
All right, Greg, what about you?
I think Jesus gave the right answers. He said that we're here because of a transcendent reality, and I think in this regard, Dr. Chopra spoke accurately, that the base reality is a transcendent reality because God created us as special people bearing His image, which gives us our value, and therefore we have purpose and destiny. And He wants to have a relationship with us, but man has been in rebellion against God. He has broken and twisted in some way, and this is why the Savior, Jesus Himself, is necessary. So I've been created for God. That's why I'm here. But I have to deal with the problem, and that is I've got to bend my knee and lay down my arms and turn to Him and ask for His forgiveness. And then we can be restored with relationship and experience the kind of peace and the kind of fullness, not just on an individual basis, but on a worldwide basis that Dr. Chopra has been talking about.
How do you react to that, Dr. Chopra?
Instead of using the word sin, I would use the word ignorance. I say that everybody is doing the best they can from the level of awareness they are in, that we are all evolving, and that as our evolution proceeds from limited awareness.
I got to stop right there. He said instead of using the word sin, we should use the word ignorance. The enemy always tries to diminish the evilness of sin. The enemy always tries to diminish the evilness of sin. It's okay. Just go ahead and just do it, dude. Just go ahead and smoke that just one time. Just tonight. Just go ahead and text her. Just tell her to come over. Just it's just one night. To go ahead and drink that. It's just one time. It's fine. God gonna forgive you. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Instead of saying the word sin, say the word ignorance. We're all trying the best that we can. All right, buddy. All right, buddy. Go ahead, Deepak.
In the direction of unlimited awareness, or at least towards it, then we experience our connection to the source of creation as our own creativity and as our own understanding of inseparability, from which comes love, compassion, and understanding, and all the attributes that we are asked to have by religious doctrine are a byproduct of our expanding awareness, not a guilt-ridden, I'm a sinner and I need to be forgiven. I need to understand and I need to have the experience. And for that...
Here's why this is so demonic, in my opinion. He's trying to get people to believe that we are not sinful by nature, to believe that we are not sinners by nature. So if he can get people to believe that we don't need forgiveness, then why do we need to go to God then? And if he can get people to not go to God, then obviously people are not going to be saved. If you can get people to believe that they do not need to repent and that they do not need cleansing of their sin, then what reason do they have to turn to God other than the fact of like, oh, I want something from you. I want a blessing. I want a house. I want money. I want cars. I want success in my career. It's the whole New Age movement. It's the whole manifestation movement and positive affirmation movement. It's not focused on God. It's focused on self. It's saying, hey, we're not that bad. We're not sinners. We don't need forgiveness. We don't have to repent. But hey, we're here to love, and we're here to create, and we're here to manifest the life of our dreams. Okay, look, y'all can do that, but when you pass away, all that stuff that you manifested, you can't take that with you. So the most important thing that you need to be concerned about is having a genuine relationship with God, is having your faith in Jesus, is having your faith in the finished work that Jesus completed for us on the cross so that our sin can be cleansed. But when you have people like this talking about we're not sinners and stuff like that, bro, we need forgiveness. We need the blood to wash away our sins. We need Jesus to make us righteous, to make us holy. There's no path to righteousness on our own. There's no path to holiness apart from Jesus. We need him in order to get to the Father, in order to enter the kingdom of God. Hey, that's just what I believe.
From where I come from, I practice the yoga of love and relationship. I practice selfless action. I practice meditation. And I try to understand the nature of reality intellectually as well.
Two quick responses, Lee. And that is, first of all, the language of sin isn't what I invented. This is Jesus' language. This is Jesus' assessment. Jesus believed in sin, and he believed in punishment. It is all through the Gospels. The good news have all kinds of bad news in them, too. Secondly, I think that when people individually reflect on this, they don't think that their own individual difficulties, what they feel badly about, is just ignorance. I think individuals are aware that they've done things that are bad, and they feel guilty for a reason. Not because they're ignorant. They feel guilty because they are guilty, and they're looking for a solution. And the solution to guilt is not denial. I think that's the ignorance response. The solution to guilt is forgiveness, and that's what Jesus provides.
Wow.
Go ahead, Dr. Chopra. How do you look at it?
Beautifully said.
I think to the extent we can forgive others and ask for forgiveness, we are participating in that. And at the same time, I'm saying that everything we do comes from a level of consciousness, and that as we expand our consciousness, then our behavior changes as well. So, we are all doing the best we can from where we are. And, I agree that Jesus used the language of sin, but Buddha didn't, and many others didn't in the East.
Of course, the problem is we're not always doing the best we can from where we are. Everybody knows that, and that's why I think Jesus' statements ring true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I beg to disagree.
Dr. Chopra, if you look at the four Gospels and you look at what Christianity historically is accepted as being the most accurate depiction of what Jesus said, did, and et cetera, you would concede that your conception of an impersonal God would contradict that. Is that right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It would.
Okay.
And, I disagree with Mr. Koukl that the four Gospels were, written at the time of Jesus' existence.
When do you think they were written?
Well, according to all scholarly research, anywhere from 60 AD to 100 AD.
Yeah, at 62 AD, the book of Acts was finished. That was the account of the early church, and Paul was in prison at that time. We know when he was in prison. By secular history, it was in 62, okay? The book of Acts was written by Luke after he wrote his gospel. That means the gospel of Luke had to be written in the late 50s. All scholars say the gospel of Luke was not the first gospel, but rather Mark was the first gospel and possibly Matthew. So you have two other accounts written before the end of the second decade after the death of Christ. So by that reckoning, within 15 years, you have writings circulating about the life of Christ from people who experienced the very thing. That's good scholarship, and that's standard scholarship. Are there people out there on the fringes that say differently? Certainly, but that's not sound scholarship. I just gave a very good argument for early dating, and it's sound.
Okay, I read the recent Newsweek issue, which differed quite a lot from your account.
Consider the source. Newsweek and the Jesus Seminar, even those people who are considered very, very radical, even by liberal academic scholars on this issue, they don't draw from the right sources, quite frankly.
It's a fact.
You must draw from the right
That's
sources.
a
No,
fact.
there is a wide variety of sources to draw from that mainline evangelical and non-evangelical scholarship to draw from, and they didn't do that. I mean, I
Do
just
you
know the
agree
field.
that the King James Bible is like the 18th or 19th iteration since the year 313? Or
No,
don't you?
no, you have a misunderstanding about how translations take place. This is my field. The translation goes from the Greek into the English from the original manuscripts, and the original language was Greek. So you have one iteration from what I use now, like a New American Standard or an NIV Bible, and what was written then. One iteration, not 18 iterations. There have been other
And you
translations,
really
but they don't
believe
build
that-
upon.
And you really believe that Christ's version of the truth is the only version of the
I
truth?
think Jesus
That's
was right.
absolute.
I think if the Gospels are accurate, and I have every reason to believe that they are in their broad, salient details. And here's a man who claimed to be God, who claimed to be the only way of salvation, who clearly claimed to be the way of forgiveness of sin, and then controlled the forces of nature, raised the dead, healed the sick, cast out demons, predicted his own death and resurrection, and then raised himself from the dead. And eyewitnesses saw this. Now, if that really happened, and that's really the question here, then Jesus has tremendous credibility in my book. And frankly, I'm going to stick with Jesus Christ instead of with Deepak Chopra on this issue.
Drop the mic. Drop the mic.
What if I showed you similar accounts in the East about other people?
Then I'd have to see whether
About who?
the justification, if you are just as critical of the historical reliability of those documents as you are of the gospel accounts, and to see if those documents have as well attested evidence for their historical reliability as the gospel accounts. So far, I haven't seen that.
Well, I think personally both East and West versions of God are mostly mythical and not historical.
Does it come down to the issue of truth, Dr. Chopra, that can we or can we not know the truth about God?
I think in a certain state of awareness, when we can experience deep stillness within us, we can get a great taste for it, but I don't think we can, in the relative, ever know the truth unless we are willing to embrace our own uncertainty and take that leap of faith and say, I'll trust the unknown because of what I've experienced. But, my faith doesn't come from a book.
Okay.
Not even mine.
Well, just
Greg respond.
the idea of truth is diametrically opposed to taking a leap of faith. Listen, Lee, if you can't know what the truth is on things in general, you will not survive 24 hours. Everybody who gets in a car, everybody who takes medicine, everybody who walks out the door has to have some way of assessing what the truth is.
But
Now,
lots
these
of
kinds of
people have
questions.
religious truth that's so different.
Well, this is
Why
the question:
has
is
this
whether it's
version
truth or
got
not.
to be the only one that's true?
I'm not arguing right now that this one is the only one that's true. What I'm trying to argue is that they can't all be true. And just because you have people who have different conceptions of truth doesn't mean that all conceptions of truth are equal.
But there
If
are
people have a
much-
different conception of truth, then obviously they could be mistaken.
They're as fervently convinced as you are. That
That's
their
right.
version
That's
is
why
true.
it doesn't matter how fervent a person is. What matters is the reasons he has for believing what he believes.
what-
Before the break, Dr. Chopra, you were talking about your concept of God, and we got into the Jesus issue and a little bit of clarity between the difference of opinion between you and Mr. Koukl. You had said that you carry around the Sermon on the Mount, which Jesus delivered, in which he did some of his teaching, and yet Greg was saying that there are other teachings of Jesus concerning judgment, concerning sin, and so forth, that you don't subscribe to. So how can you kind of pick and choose what you want to take from Jesus and mix it with other people's viewpoints? Doesn't that contradict?
Hold on one second, y'all. All right, sorry, y'all. Had to go on a bathroom break. Let's continue.
Predict itself there.
The King James version of the Bible is about the 19th iteration. If you go look at the history of Christianity, Western Christianity began about 313 AD when King Constantine decided to adopt it for political reasons. There are versions of Christianity that are quite different. St. Paul went west and then others went east. And even amongst Christians, there are a wide variety of ideas about what Christ said or did not say. We have no direct evidence of what he said because the Gospels, even the four Gospels, were written long after the death of Christ. And there are other Gospels which we are more familiar with in the East, and we have a tradition of really having reverence for Christ as a messenger of God, but not the only messenger of God. And all I can say is that's the worldview I was brought up with.
Yeah. Well, that basically all he said is that there are different points of view with regards to Jesus and other religions, which to me is quite obvious. The question is, how do we know the right answer about any of these kinds of things? You go back to the primary source documents that give you the information about those people. Dr. Chopra is just mistaken in his assertion that that we don't have any good record of the life of Jesus. Actually, Lee, you've done tremendous work on this yourself. There is tremendous, powerful scholarship that demonstrate that the Gospels were written early and not late, that they represent eyewitness reports, and they give us a reasonably accurate view of what Jesus actually said and what he did. And these are the important situations, these are the important details that I'm talking about here. Because people have differences of opinion about it doesn't mean that nobody can possibly know. He said, Dr. Chopra said earlier, who's to say? Well, the answer is the person with the best reasons gets to say. You look at the writings and you see if somebody's accurately represented them. I could take some of the things that Dr. Chopra has said today, and I could isolate them and characterize him as a fundamentalist Christian who believes exactly as I do. If I were to do that, he would consider himself ill-abused, and he'd be right. But we think nothing about doing the same thing with Jesus, isolating those things that fit into our worldview and make Jesus into somebody like us, rather than letting him be himself. By the way, Christians do this as well. It seems manifestly clear in any record of what Jesus had to say that Jesus wasn't a Hindu mystic. He didn't believe in cosmic consciousness. He was a Jew. He was a monotheist. He was a Jewish rabbi. He held to the Old Testament, and he made some corrections in people's misunderstandings. But his worldview was a Jewish biblical worldview and not a Hindu worldview. And we would be well to read Jesus' statements in light of that if we're going to take him seriously. One of the reasons we quote Jesus, and Dr. Chopra does as well, because Jesus is someone to be contended with. If he is, we should listen to him carefully and be very careful that we get his statements right.
Okay, Dr. Chopra?
What about people who are not Christians? What about them? Are they damned to go to hell forever?
Well, the answer to this is very simple in a broad sense. I mentioned earlier that reality has a way of bruising people who don't take it seriously. Whether I'm right or whether you're right in our respective views, there are consequences to people who get it wrong. If you're right and I get it wrong, I'm going to be hurt by that, Dr. Chopra. If I'm right and you get it wrong and others get it wrong, then they can be hurt by it as well. I'm just simply saying there are consequences. If what Jesus said is right, then there are serious consequences for unbelief, because everybody will stand before God and give an account for their life and be properly tried for the crimes that they committed against God. Now, maybe Jesus is wrong. Maybe you're right. But if you're right, I'm going to miss out. There are consequences for getting the truth wrong. And this is why I'm emphasizing we have to be very careful about the truth issue.
See, the difference between you and me is you're certain and I'm not. That's all. You know, and my uncertainty I'm willing to embrace, and I'm comfortable with my uncertainty, and you seem to know the truth. So that's our essential difference. And, you know, when I look at talk to Islamic people, they're very certain about their point of view, and so are the Hindu fundamentalists, and so that's where the problem lies.
Okay, this to me, and I don't at all mean to be unkind, Dr. Chopra, but this
No,
sounds like
but
I don't mean this, but I think that was a disingenuous remark. You must have 8 or 10 titles that have told hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of copies of books, in which you are telling people what you think the world is like, and you are enjoining them to believe their way. Nobody in his right mind would, you're enjoining them to believe like you, and nobody in their right mind would do that unless they were reasonably convinced their view was correct.
No,
if they weren't, then you have no right to tell people.
I'm not enjoining people to believe in a certain way. I'm just expressing a worldview, that's all.
Yes, but your book is called The Way of Peace, isn't it?
They're endorsed by Christians, by bishops, by people all over the world. And, you know, some people agree with me and a lot don't.
Right, but if they don't agree with you, you probably think they're mistaken.
You can't impose your values on me, and I don't want to impose my values on you. And, you know, when you say I'm being disingenuous, that's not true. Absolutely not true. In fact, I talk about the wisdom of uncertainty in all my books.
My only point about disingenuity in this regard was that you say that you're open and you're not certain, but that seems unusual to say when somebody writes so many books that enjoins and encourages people to embrace his beliefs.
You know, I talk about uncertainty all the time. I talk about an evolving worldview. I talk about the fact that science is discovering that at the heart of creation, there is omniscience, there is omnipresence, there is omnipotence. But I cannot conceptualize that in somebody who's a person who has been squeezed into the volume of a body and comes from a particular ethnic background.
Okay, well, you can't conceptualize that, but since you're uncertain, it might be the case then, because maybe you could be wrong, as you said, that this point of view is the correct view, even though it's hard for you to conceptualize that the things that Jesus said taken as a
But you
whole...
seem to be very sure that your point of view is correct,
Well,
aren't you?
I'm pretty confident, but that's because I'm not
so
carefully...
good luck.
And that's
Good
because I'm
luck.
not
So are the
carefully...
Islamists, so are the Hindus, so are the Jains, so
Yeah,
are the Zoroastrians.
This is precisely why psychological confidence isn't enough. You need more than psychological confidence. You need good reasons to support that. And this is why a lot of work that I've done and Leah's done as well is to give reasons for faith. So we're not taking a leap of faith. It's not religious wishful thinking, but we are trying to build knowledge based on good rationale. Could we
I
be
think I'm
mistaken?
trying
Yes,
to
we
do the
could
same
be.
thing. And I define faith as the willingness to embrace that uncertainty and willingness to face the unknown.
Let's look carefully at what Jesus says about himself. The curious thing, Lee, is that Jesus was not a pluralist. In fact, he was a Jew, which first commandment was there should be no other gods before the real God. Moses offered.
Okay, I think that's it. Man, oh man. Yo, shout out to y'all. For those of y'all who stuck around and watched this entire video, shout out to y'all. Like I said, I was just going to watch this video by myself. So, I mean, that's why I wasn't really saying much. I was just trying to take it all in and understand what they were saying. But, you know, I wanted to share it with y'all as well. You know, something that I'm coming away with it from is as the video progressed, you can kind of see the difference in attitudes. Greg Koukl, he stayed very even throughout the whole debate. He never really got too high, never really got too low. He stayed very even. Whereas Deepak, he definitely had moments, especially towards the end, where you could see his pride start to set in, where you could see that his arguments were kind of falling flat and he was starting to contradict himself at certain points. And then that's at the end of the video where you saw where he was saying like, well, you know, you seem very confident that Christianity is the only way, but so are, you know, the Muslims and the Buddhists and all these other religions. They're very confident too. At that point, I feel like Deepak was starting to realize like, bro, your argument does not have any legs. It's not standing on anything. It's not supported by anything. The fact of the matter is, as I said in the beginning of this video, I believe Deepak Chopra, he is very good at identifying certain elements within certain religious texts that would be appealing to people. And he's good at taking those elements, repackaging them under his own brand, and then selling it and giving people what they want to hear as opposed to what they need to hear. Giving people his version of the truth as opposed to the actual truth. And that's what I think. So let me know what y'all think about this video in the comments. Like this video, share this video with somebody if you found it helpful, if you found it interesting. Yeah, I'm out, y'all.